Welcome to English Language Presentation 1. My name is Ashan Arachige and I will be conducting the Form 1 presentation. Let's move on to the next slide. In this presentation, we will cover the following areas. Non-fiction Unit 5, Let's Slip the Dogs of War, page number 76. And under that, we will cover first text level work, page number 78. Word level work, page number 78, sentence level work, page number 79, and again text level work, which is writing, page number 80. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so I hope everyone has turned to page number 76, Unit 5, Let's Slip the Dogs of War. So this unit is related to war. Right, as you might have imagined. So in this unit we will look at some posters and the impact or the feeling we humans get when we see images like these and how it might affect our decisions, right? But before that, what do you think Let's Slip the Dogs of War mean, right? I'll give you a minute as in pause this video and try to imagine, and then I'll tell you what it means. Okay, so the title of this unit, Let's Slip the Dogs of War, can be broken down into two main parts, right? The first part is Let's Slip, which could mean to unleash something or to release or to let loose something, right? Or the second part, Dogs of War, which could have a literal meaning to train dogs that fight in war, or it could also mean soldiers that fight in the war. It could also mean or refer to weapons that are used to fight in war, such as guns and other types of weapons, right? So if you thought, if you broke down the topic the way I did and thought of a reasonable explanation close to mine, then good job, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, please turn to page number 78. I'm going to read the part on top and I want you to follow it with me. After I finish reading it, I will tell you in my own words what propaganda means and what this section is about, right? So, propaganda, an organized program of publicity and selected information to persuade people to a certain point of view. At the outbreak of the First World War, many young men were eager to join up to be part of the big adventure. As the war dragged on, and it was reported that thousands were killed on the front line, the armed forces needed men to replace them. Although conscription was in place, it was considered that volunteers made better soldiers. Every country involved in the war launched a propaganda campaign to persuade the men that it was a glorious thing to fight and die for one's country. Part of the campaign was posters on billboards and advertisements in newspapers appealing to an individual's sense of patriotism and heroism. Okay, so propaganda is, I would say, information that is biased or misleading in nature. Okay, so let's say a government wants to fight a war. Okay, people usually don't want to fight in wars. But if a government wants to fight in war, they will push or tell you lies about the enemy so that you would want to fight for your country, right? So spreading false information in hopes of gaining or realizing an agenda, okay, is known as propaganda. So there are some other difficult words here in this passage. I'm not going to explain them because under vocabulary, word level work, you will be asked to find the meanings of these words, right? So let's move on to the next slide. We now look at the images that are given in page number 76 and 77. So the image on page number 76 is a British recruiting poster calling its people to join the war, right? And the image on page number 77 is an Austrian recruiting poster calling the Austrian countrymen to join or take part in their war. Okay? Pause this video and take a minute to observe the art that is given in these two pages. So, both images contain an enemy and a heroic knight on a horse battling a dragon, right? In this case, although the actual enemy is other humans from another country, it is represented as a dragon in the poster to inspire the people to fight against a dangerous enemy, right? So these visual images are expected to inspire and motivate the people so that they will take part in that particular country's war, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now that we are clear on what's given on the top in the pink box, we'll move on to answering the comprehension questions. In section A, you are expected to write the similarities and the differences between the two posters by carefully observing them. Okay, so I have given a similarity and a difference in the presentation. So a similarity would be both posters have dragons, right? So there are scary looking dragons in both posters. But a difference would be in the Austrian poster there is an age or rather year gap, right? It's from 1914 to 1917, right? This age is not, or rather years are not given in the British poster, right? So that's the difference between the two posters. So if you look carefully enough, I'm sure you can find many similarities and differences. What I want you to do is make a table or a list, write the similarities between the two posters and the differences between the two posters, okay? In the next part, there are 5 questions. So the first question, who or what do you think the knight on the white horse is meant to represent? So we can see the dragon and the horse in both posters, right? So there's a story, the legend of Saint George and the dragon, okay? The story originated in the 11th century. Okay, now we are living in the 21st century. This is a really old story. Okay, so this photo of the soldier on a horse defeating a dragon is a famous one. And whenever you see it, you should know that that is Saint George killing a dragon. Okay, that's what it is representing. Okay, so the answer to your B1 question is the knight on the white horse is meant to represent Saint George, right? Okay. I want you to try answering 2, 3, 4 and 5 as well. And if you run into any difficulties, feel free to ask your parents. I'm sure they will help you. Or you use internet resources to find answers as well. Okay. Moving on to part C. Write a paragraph to explain how you might react to these posters in time of war if you were a young man eager to join up, as in join the army, or if you were a woman whose husband had died in battle. So you can pick one of these two and you have to imagine that you are living in a time of war, okay? And try to write a paragraph and explain how you might react if you see posters as given in page number 76 and 77. Okay, write a small description. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So now we are going to look at word level work. And under word level work, there are 2 subsections. The first one is vocabulary. And on page number 79, you have spelling, right? So in the vocabulary section, you are expected to use the dictionary. Find and write down the meanings of the given words. Okay, so most of the hard words that were given in the paragraph above are given here in the vocabulary section, right? Use the dictionary and write down the meanings and make sure you memorize the spellings of these words as well, okay? next, let's look at spelling. So, spelling by analogy. So, what is an analogy? Okay. It is a comparison of one thing that is similar to another, to put it simply, right? In this section, we will look at word families as well. Okay. So, what do you think a word family is? Just pause this video or presentation and just try to think of an answer, and then play the video again. Well, a word family contains words which have a common base, okay, to which prefixes or suffixes are added in order to change the base word, okay. So the base words and the changed base words all belong to one family called a word family, right? So if you know how to spell adventure, Adventure, okay, it's easy to spell adventurous by removing E and putting OUS at the end as a suffix, okay, or you can put MIS in the beginning of the base word adventure, which is adding a prefix to adventure and convert it to misadventure, right? So more similar words to adventure would be adventurously, adventurer, adventurousness, right? There are plenty more, etc. So as you can see, the base word adventurous has a lot of spelling analogies. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so let's move on to part 1 of the spelling section. Here you're supposed to put the words in their specific family groups, right? So find the base word and find the spelling analogies that match that base word and write it as a list, okay? That's the first part that you have to do. So as I can see, there are 3 base words. Yeah. Okay, so try to find what those 3 base words are and then find the spelling analogies that match those base words. Okay. An example has been done in the presentation by using the examples provided in the textbook on top of page 79. So the base word would be place, and similar words are replace, placing, placed, misplaced. Okay, so there are many. Okay, so in part A, just try to find the similar words. Okay. In part B, for each word, write 2 or more words from the same word family, right? So if you have war as the first one, I'm just gonna do the first one as an example. The easiest way to find similar words is to go through a dictionary and find the word war, right? So if you come across war, then you will find the next word which is similar to war, which will have a suffix, right? This way it is very easy to find words that match the word war from the dictionary, okay? But you must also try to find words with prefixes that are similar to war. Words such as interwar, anti-war, post-war are all belonging to the same word family as well, but they have prefixes, okay? So use the dictionary and try to find similar words for the remaining 9 words. The first one is done for you in the presentation. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now we will look at sentence level work. Under that, grammar and punctuation, right? Under grammar and punctuation, we will look at direct and reported speech. So in this unit, direct speech and reported speech are 2 different ways used when conveying or repeating a message that was said to you by someone else, right? So reported speech I don't know if that's a familiar word for you, but it is more commonly known as indirect speech as well. Okay, you can check the hint at the bottom of the textbook. It's right there. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so let's dive into what direct speech might mean, right? Direct speech describes when something is being repeated exactly as it was said, right? Usually in between a pair of inverted commas. Now, for example, if you want to write down what your mom said when, let's say, for example, when she was going out of the house, she turns back and tells you, I'll come home by 7 p.m. Okay? So if you want to write that down, in direct speech, you can say, my mom told me, comma, open inverted commas, I'll come home by 7 p.m. Okay? I'll come home by 7 p.m. is exactly what she said, and that is in between the inverted commas, right? So that is called direct speech. My mom told me, and you write down exactly what she said. Now in indirect speech will share the same information, okay? But instead of expressing someone's comments or speech by directly repeating them, it involves reporting or describing what was said, okay? So the obvious difference is that in indirect speech, you won't use the inverted commas, okay? But what you will do is, you will describe what was said to you in your own words, okay? So the same example, if you want to write it in indirect speech, you would say, my mom told me that she would come home by 7 p.m. Okay? So we have used a few extra words and omitted some words as well in order to fit the idea in the sentence. Okay? You're taking the idea or the meaning of what your mom told you, and then you're writing it in your own words. Okay? That is indirect speech. Alright, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so as you know, when you want to write something that was said to you in indirect speech, you're using your own words. When you're using your own words, we follow some grammar rules in order to make the sentence grammatically correct, right? So likewise, you need to refresh your memory on the grammar rules, present tense, past tense, and future tense, okay? In order to refresh your memory, I have included 3 slides and provided examples on how direct speech converts to indirect speech. Okay, so let's go through the first slide. So if you have present tense can be present simple, present progressive, present perfect, present perfect progressive, right? So if your direct speech is in present simple, then it changes into past simple. For example, she said, I work in a hospital, is in direct speech. Okay? If you want to write that in indirect speech, you can say, she said that she worked in a hospital. Okay? So the next one, present progressive. He said, I am waiting for someone. Okay? If you want to change this into indirect speech, you would say, he said that he was waiting for someone, right? Okay. Present perfect. She said, I have completed the work. That is in direct speech. If you want to convert that, you would say, she said that she had completed the work. Okay? Alright, last one, present perfect progressive. So, if someone says, if you see a sentence that says, she said, I have been working in a factory for 2 years. Okay, now this is in direct speech. So, in order to convert it into indirect speech, you would say, she said that she had been working in a factory for 2 years, right? So pause this video or presentation and then go through all the examples that are provided Actually, I would recommend that you write down all the examples that are provided in your notebook so that it refreshes your memory, right? Let's move on to the next slide. In this slide, we will see how direct speech converts to indirect speech when it comes to past tense, right? So you have your past simple, past progressive, and past perfect, right? So if the sentence is in past simple, it changes to past perfect. If the sentence is in past progressive, it changes into past perfect progressive, right? And if the direct speech sentence is in past perfect, there is no change at all. It remains in past perfect when you convert it into indirect speech, right? The only thing that's going to go missing in this sentence are the inverted commas, but the tense will stay the same, okay? Let's go through some examples. The first one is, he said, I started a job. Okay, so this is in past simple. In order to write this in indirect speech, you would say, he said that he had started a job, which is past perfect. Okay. Next one. He said, I was writing a poem. Okay. So this sentence is in past progressive. So if you want to convert that into indirect speech, then you would say, he said that he had been writing a poem, right? So that sentence is in past perfect progressive. Okay. Then the next one is past perfect, right? They said we had won the game. Okay. This sentence is in past perfect. So if you want to change that into indirect speech, you don't have to change the tense in the sentence. You just write it without changing the tense in your own words. They said that they had won the game. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Go through the other examples that are given in this slide by pausing the video or the presentation, and please write down all the notes in your notebook. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. So the final part is the future tense. If you have a sentence in future tense or future simple tense, the word will in that sentence changes into would in indirect speech, right? And if you have a future continuous tense in direct speech, the words will be changes into would be in indirect speech, right? And if you have a sentence in future perfect tense with the words will have, so will have changes into would have in indirect speech, right? Let's go through some examples. First one is, she said, I will go to London. Okay, so there's will, and this is in future simple tense. Okay, so will changes into would. If you're writing it in indirect speech, you would say, she said that she would go to London. Okay. Okay. Next one. He said to me, I will be waiting for you. So this is in future continuous tense, and you have will be in the sentence, right? So will be changes into would be in indirect speech. So you would say, he said to me that he would be waiting for me, right? The next one, the last one. She said, I will have cooked the food. So this sentence is in future perfect tense, and you have the words will have, right? So will have in indirect speech, you would write it as would have. So you would say, she said that she would have cooked the food. Okay. I hope these examples were helpful in understanding how to change between direct speech and indirect speech. It is very important to know that this is not only a conversion from direct speech to indirect speech. Okay. If you want to convert from indirect speech to direct speech, you would follow the rules in the opposite way. Okay. It's very easy if you follow these three tables. So please write down this table as well in your notebook, and let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now that we know how to convert direct speech to indirect speech, we'll look at how to convert indirect speech to direct speech in this slide. So generally, the conversion from indirect speech to direct speech is generally easy and doesn't have a lot of difficulties. All you have to do is follow the rules which we have learned from changing direct speech to indirect speech in reverse. Right? So I have given a few examples here. So the first one is Clinton asked John to go with him. So this is an indirect speech. If you want to write it in direct speech, you would say Clinton said to John, come with me. Right? You have to extract what was said. Okay, what was said directly in order to put it in the inverted commas. Right? Let's look at the next example. The stranger asked Alice where he lived. Okay, so to write that in direct speech, the stranger said to Alice, where do you live? Okay, you have to extract the actual question and then put it in inverted commas. Okay, the next one. An old mouse asked, who would bell the cat? Okay, so you would say in direct speech, an old mouse said, comma, within inverted commas, who will bell the cat? Question mark and close inverted commas. Right? The last one. Ram said to his mother that he would be late that night. Okay, so to write that in direct speech, you would say, Ram said to his mother, comma, I will be late today night. Right? So it's fairly easy if you look at it to convert indirect to direct by extracting the actual question that is directed towards you. Okay, and the main difference is that you have to put inverted commas when you're writing in direct speech. I believe that these examples are enough to understand how to change sentences from indirect to direct. And if you want a further explanation in grammar, I would recommend the previous slides. And my advice is to convert the rules we followed in reverse. Okay, follow the rules in reverse. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, now go to the textbook, page 79. Here you have part A, where you have to convert direct speech into indirect speech. The question says, write each of the following sentences in reported speech, which is, as we know, is in indirect speech, right? So the first two sentences have been done for you in order for you to understand how to do these questions, right? The first one is, the war has lasted longer than we expected, said the general. So that is in direct speech. So the answer to that would be, the general said that the war has lasted longer than they expected. Okay? No inverted commas, just a full stop at the end. Okay? The next one. Our men are exhausted, complained the sergeant. So to write this in indirect speech, or rather reported speech, the sergeant complained saying that our men were exhausted. Okay? It's fairly easy. Just try to answer the remaining questions. Let's go to B part. In page number 80. So in the B part, what you have to do is change the sentences that are in indirect speech or reported speech into direct speech. Okay? Here the first one is, Sam said that he wanted to join the army. Okay? So to write that in direct speech, you have to extract what Sam said, okay, from the sentence. So the answer to that would be, Sam said, I want to join the army. Okay? It should come from his mouth, like it should sound like he said it. Okay? Alright. The next one. His mother asked him why he wanted to do such a stupid thing. Okay. So to write this in direct speech, you can say, "Why do you want to do such a stupid thing?" his mother asked. Right? So please complete part A and part B, the remaining questions, and we'll go on to text level work in the next slide. Finally, we shall look at text level work writing on page number 80. Here you have two assignments. The first one is to design a poster. And in order to design this poster, you need to pick one of the three topics that are given. Okay, you can choose join the army, or give to charity, or give blood, right? After you have chosen a topic, I want you to determine the size of your poster. Okay, you can choose a size that you think is appropriate, but it has to be at least A4 size, or it can be a bit larger as well. Okay? It's very important to know that before immediately jumping into your A4 paper or bristleboard size design area, on a rough piece of paper, draw or design the layout as to how you would arrange your information, okay, where you're going to put a picture, the size and the style of the lettering for the message, and what colors that will have an immediate impact. For example, the color red is known to grab attention very easily, okay? So a poster needs to grab the attention of whoever passes by or sees the poster, right? So make it very creative and choose a topic and design your poster. Okay. Next one is personal choice. It's a writing assignment again. Here you have two areas to choose from. The first one is to find 2 or 3 advertisements in newspapers or magazines. Write about similarities and differences between the advertisements and the posters, right? So you need to use internet resources, or you can find some newspaper articles, advertisements, or advertisements in magazines, and try to compare what are the similarities and differences between an advertisement and a poster. Okay, and you have to also mention which appeals to you more, as in which do you like more, an advertisement or a poster. And if you say and you like an advertisement better, you have to explain why you like it better. Okay, so that is the first question. And the second part is you have to research one of the following First World War topics, right? The first one is the Battle of Somme, and the second one is trench warfare. In order to do this, you will have to get some help from your parents, or you have to do some research on the internet to identify what the Battle of Somme was and to get details about it, or what trench warfare was and to get details about it in order to create a fact file. Okay, I have given a sample fact file on this slide. As you can see, there are some pictures on the side, and the information is categorized in a table manner, and there are some fun facts on the left side, right? You don't have to stick to this format. You can create your own format as long as the information is clearly visible. Okay, this is a fact file, so all the facts need to be clearly visible. You can add some pictures on the sides to make it more attractive. Okay, so just pick one from personal choice and complete it. And if you have chosen the second one where you have to research, just pick a topic from Battle of Somme or trench warfare and then complete it. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. We have arrived at the end of the presentation. Please do all the exercises mentioned in this presentation, and I sincerely hope that you and your family stay safe from this crisis. Thank you very much.